thanks very much for the opportunity to share some of our experiences with everybody here today. As an introduction, like Dan said, I work for Western Mercedes Commercial. We're a light commercial vehicle supplier in all throughout Scotland. And for the last 12 or 18 months, we've been running an electric van demo program whereby we'll give out one of our electric vehicles from our range to businesses and companies, typically for a week, but sometimes a little bit more if it's someone that has more departments, if it's a bigger company to get round. And we'll basically do a bit of driver training with them. We'll also advise on the charging infrastructure in Scotland, and if they don't have access to their own charge points, we'll obviously advise the best places for them to use and the best way to get the most out of the program. Today, as Dan and Stuart mentioned, we're going to look at some of the most common myths and misconceptions that we come across when dealing with customers. So these are the kind of preconceived ideas that people tend to have before we take them on the program. And we've highlighted the main three things that we encounter when dealing with customers, which are: number one, EVs are too expensive. Number two, the charging infrastructure in Scotland isn't good enough at the moment for them. And thirdly, that the range and overall performance of electric vehicles is insufficient to kind of tackle their day-to-day work. So I'm just going to jump straight into it and we'll tackle costs first. So it's fair to say that the outright purchase price of electric vehicles is still slightly higher than traditional ICE vehicles. So we'd expect it to be round about 20 to 25%, depending on what type of vehicle it is, what brand. They're all different, obviously. But one of the things that kind of helps to bridge the gap between the purchase price on traditional vehicles and electric is your ability to take advantage of government funding. So there's an OZEV grant on light commercial vans, which is up to 35% of the vehicle purchase price, up to a cap of £5,000. So for example, all the electric vans that we supply currently qualify for a full £5,000 of government funding. So that helps to kind of bridge that gap between the outright purchase price. Moving on to fuel savings. So obviously the biggest cost saving that you'd expect to find for your business when switching or transitioning to electric vehicles is the fuel saving. We'd expect it to be anywhere up to 75%. So if you've got a big vehicle fleet of 20 vans or maybe a little bit more than that, you can quite quickly do the maths and work out what a 75% reduction in fuel costs looks like. It's probably quite a big number. In addition to that, there are reduced servicing costs. So our servicing costs are around about 35% lower on electric vehicles than they are on traditional ICE. That's basically because they have less moving parts. They don't require the same level of oil and lubricants. And as a result of them not having as many moving parts, there's less things can go wrong. So we find that overall maintenance is slightly less expensive than it would be on their diesel and petrol counterparts. At the moment, there's also an opportunity to take advantage of zero road tax. So all zero emission vehicles in Scotland at the moment qualify for zero road tax. Over a typical 4-year change cycle of an electric van, that would represent an £1,100 saving per vehicle. So again, if you've got a big fleet, it quite quickly becomes quite a big number in terms of what you can save. Lastly, I think it's important to identify that charger installation is not something that you would have to traditionally deal with traditional IC vehicles. However, the additional cost is again offset by some government funding. So up until I think the end of this month, there was some OZEV funding available for charge point installation for home chargers. So if you're looking to install charge points in the home of, for example, drivers that take van home, you can take advantage of that. As I say, I think that's coming to an end at the end of this month, but there's also an energy savings trust grant available for £250, which again can work to offset the cost of charger installation. When we're looking at workplace charge installation, It's slightly different. There's a workplace charging scheme available, which also offers funding. So if you're looking to install like a large number of chargers at your workplace, there is government funding available. It depends, or what you qualify for depends on the size of the company, number of employees, for example. So you probably have to delve into that a little bit. But we work with lots of charge point installers, and we'd happily advise who the best person to speak to organise that would be. Moving on, so if we move on to talk about charging infrastructure in Scotland, we can draw a little bit from the experiences that we've had with customers throughout the time when we've been running the programme. So it's important to note that Scotland is ahead of the curve in terms of public charge points that are available. I think we've got slightly more than 45 charge points per 100,000 of the population. So that's slightly better than it is anywhere else in the United Kingdom at the moment. Last year, we took part in the Eevee Rally of Scotland, which was a 1,200-mile rally around Scotland, which was representatives from loads of different electric vehicle manufacturers took part. We supplied the maintenance vehicles for the event, which were our electric minibuses, and it gave us an opportunity to travel around Scotland and learn a bit more about the charging network. The rally didn't stick to the kind of beaten tracks. There were checkpoints in locations like Loch Lomond, all the way up in Scrabstar. They visited Aberdeen and Inverness, so not the particular urban areas. We kind of went everywhere, so we learned a bit about how good the public charging network is. Usually, I've highlighted Charge Place Scotland here because they are usually the chargers that we advise customers to use when we first drop off a demo with them. So we'll identify the 4 or 5 nearest charge points to them when we deliver the vehicle and say, look, these are the best places for you to charge the van, assuming they don't already have access to charging at their own premises. This allows them obviously to kind of navigate through the time when they have the vehicle and kind of optimizes the experience that they have. Lastly, it's important to note that we would strongly advocate home charging and workplace charging as being the optimal method of charging going forward, so that it will be the most cost effective and the most practical way of charging your vehicle is have it 100% at the beginning of the day because you've charged it overnight. That's what we would suggest to everyone, obviously, but when you're demoing vehicles, some people aren't at that stage yet. That's why we kind of advise to take advantage of the public charging network. Moving on again, so the final thing that we encounter when dealing with drivers and representatives from companies is range anxiety. So this is a little number in the bottom corner of your dashboard, which is ticking down towards the moment when you get like stranded at the side of the road and in need of some help. In the whole time that we've done the demo program, this has never happened to anybody for a few reasons. Now, virtually all electric vehicles at the moment have rapid charge capabilities, which means you can charge them up in something like 30 to 40 minutes. So whatever the range on your van might be at the beginning of the day, it's important not to look at that as being your daily limit. So it's possible to sort of charge up on your lunch or sit and do your emails and have a coffee or whatever, and then be back on your way. We've certainly done a lot of testing on this to see how achievable it is to sort of charge on the hop as it was. So a lot of this is down to driver education and driver mindset. Most electric vehicles now have have different drive modes, which allow you to take advantage of, well, obviously select the best drive mode for whatever the job you're doing is, allow you to optimize the range. Electric vehicles almost all also have a method of recuperation. So by recuperation, what we mean is a way of transferring the kinetic energy from things like braking back into the battery as a way of kind of recharging as you go. So technology kind of allows you to, again, optimize the range. But it's very, very important that we do driver training with people and just educate people how to use vehicles just to allow them to get kind of the best out of it. And if we could just finish by saying technology is moving in a really rapid way forwards. If it possibly isn't quite time, or the vehicles that are available at the moment aren't quite up to meeting the needs of your business at the moment, electric is coming. The cutoff for electric and diesel vehicles, petrol and diesel vehicles being manufactured is 2030, but most of the big manufacturers have committed to that date being 2025. So we're talking about a couple of years down the line. Even if you're not quite ready for it just now, it's time to certainly think about it and come up with a plan. And obviously, we are more than happy to talk to people and kind of help them prepare for it if possible. So I'm kind of close to my time, so I'll hand back over. Thanks very much for listening to us. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks a lot, Fergus. No, that provided a good overview of the preconceptions, I guess. Am I allowed to jump in and ask a question? I mean, I've got the microphone. Sorry, Fergus, can I ask? I know when we first chatted, you mentioned that you'd come across customers who were holding out for hydrogen. Yeah. I mean, what's your takeaway on this class of vehicle?
We identified three things as the main questions that we asked, but we were kind of close to including the hydrogen question in the presentation because it is one thing that a lot of people ask us about. What I would say is, like, I work for a manufacturer that still produces like a variety of different types of vehicles. We're not advocating electric as being 100% the future of transport in Scotland. What I would say is, at the moment, the charging infrastructure is there. There's a lot of investment gone into it. There's vehicles that are ready and capable of doing the jobs that are required at the moment. I think I've discussed how many electric charging points are available. I think in the whole of the UK currently, there are around about 20 hydrogen refueling stations. So it's fair to say that the infrastructure isn't there the same way as it is with electric at the moment. So whereas it might form part of the future, I don't think it's quite ready at the moment to kind of jump into it. So I'd say electric's definitely the future for the foreseeable few years.